Don't answer the door at 12:04. Part 2. Annoyed at how much I cared about a man I'd only just met less than a day ago, I opened the front door, except there was no one around. I flicked on the floodlight, and there were no signs of movement in any direction. "This needs to stop, Lenny," I yelled in both anger and frustration. Upon receiving no response, I backed up into the kitchen and slammed the door shut. I told myself if Lenny knocks again, I'm immediately going to call the police and let them sort it out. Upon turning around, it felt like my heart stopped as my eyes caught sight of a dark figure rushing towards me. Before I could react, something hit me in the head, and everything cut to black. I awoke the next morning on the kitchen floor with a hell of a headache, but my primary focus was immediately dialing 911 and connecting with the local sheriff. I told the sheriff about my neighbor attacking me in my own home last night, and to my surprise, he was there with a few other squad cars in about 15 minutes. As I frantically started explaining to the sheriff about Lenny, his stupid greeting, warning, and the fact that he attacked me in my own home, the sheriff cut me. "There's a lot to unpack here," said the sheriff in an authoritative but understanding voice. "You'll want to come to the station to clarify a few things, submit an official statement, and sign some paperwork. I can drive you." This seemed a little odd to me, but who was I to question a small-town sheriff? After all, he and his team were quite responsive to my call. When we arrived at the station, the sheriff said, "First things first, we need to make sure we're looking for the right guy. Look at this screen over here and point to the man who attacked you, if you will." The computer screen he pointed to seemed relatively modern, but the photos currently being displayed on it looked as if they were taken by a retro camera. Regardless, it was clear as day which one was Lenny. So without much thought, I pointed straight at his picture. "I see," said the sheriff in a concerned voice. "I'll be right back." I immediately began to wonder if Lenny wasn't who he said he was, or perhaps he was someone who had been wanted for quite some time. None of the scenarios running through my mind had prepared me for the old newspaper the sheriff handed me. Lenny's picture was on the front page clear as day, but the headline read, "Local man Lenny Stringer brutally murdered in his own home." Further down it continues with, "Around 12:04 a.m., neighbors reported yelling and screaming. No suspects have been named." I could immediately feel the color draining from my face. Was this some sort of sick joke the town liked to play on newcomers to scare them off? This couldn't possibly be real. Sensing my disbelief, the sheriff broke the silence. "Yeah, this was a famous case back in the day. Poor Lenny was barely recognizable when they found him. They never did catch who'd done it, mainly because no one knew who'd do that to Lenny. No need to worry, though. That happened 100 years ago today. Even if the killer was a toddler at that point, they're dead and gone by now." After this ridiculous story from the sheriff, I decided to ask for a ride home. Upon my arrival, I immediately started researching this Lenny nonsense. There was no way what they were telling me was real. And yet every news outlet I landed on seemed to confirm the sheriff's recollection, which was far more chilling than the town potentially being out to get me. As previously stated, this was a few weeks ago now. I haven't been attacked, nor have I seen any sign of Lenny since that day I talked to the sheriff. Credit where credit is due, I'm likely attack-free since I now heed Lenny's warning. Every night when I receive a knock at the door at 12:04, I ignore it. No matter what sounds are on the other side, I refuse to answer no matter who is asking. And before you recommend simply abandoning the job and moving, this happens to me everywhere now. I dread the day when I accidentally answer the door at this godforsaken time and find out what happens when I slip up a second time.